In 30 seconds.
Hello everyone, Tebrith here, and welcome to my 6th week of TF2. If you're new here, this series is a documentation on my journey to learning this old first-person shooter called Team Fortress 2, and for this past week, I've been exploring the side grades that are available to Heavy. For this video, I'm going to do something a bit different from my usual format. This week, I'll be making a tier list of all of Heavy's weapons on how useful I found them to be. It will contain 3 tiers. There's the solid tier, containing weapons that are consistently useful for the main playstyle, or an answer for a common problem for the class. There's the situational tier, containing weapons that are more situational in their selection and can be useful under the right circumstances. And finally, there's the meme tier, for I personally don't believe there's a bad weapon in the game, for even the worst weapons can get pretty entertaining, if not useful under rare circumstances. And before I start going into the rankings, keep in mind this tier list is made purely with the casual game mode in mind. No alternate game modes, no man versus machine, just the standard casual matches. And with that, let's begin. First up is the stock minigun. As the default weapon for Heavy, it was made for consistency. No gimmicks, no downsides. It helps lock down choke points and is what defines Heavy for what he is. A head-to-head monster that bravely tackles any other class that dares oppose him. Best used in choke points with a lot of cover to avoid sniper fire and maximize the amount of damage you dish out. Overall, a solid choice of a weapon. Up next, the shotgun. While true it doesn't do as much damage as the minigun, its true strength lies in immediate burst fire damage. Where the minigun has to rev up and deal extended damage over time, effectively locking the player in place to play a semi-mobile sentry and protect choke points, the shotgun is immediate, with all its damage firing in a burst, allowing you to be more mobile and have an answer for when you're changing locations and get ambushed. Overall, a solid option to have. Then there's the fists. Something I've learned about how TF2 is balanced is that the melee weapons, as weapons, are rather horrible. Not counting the spy's knives, of course, and are in fact best compared by the utility they give while out on the field. With that in mind, the fists at first glance don't seem to have any utility. However, what it does have is arguably the best taunt kill in the game. The High Noon taunt kill, with its range, mostly silent nature, instant kill action, and short wind-up time, I've gotten better at using this to surprise folk without having to leave the safety of cover, or to get the jump on people giving chase around corners. Ultimately, I've grown to appreciate the fists for what they do have to offer. Nonetheless, the opportunities to use this taunt kill effectively don't come up as often as you might think. So, for as useful as it is, without any sort of utility to help you open up more opportunities, I'm gonna have to put it in the situational tier. Moving on to the Tomislav, while it's true it does fire a tad slower than the default minigun, it also has a tighter spread, allowing you to be more accurate with those shots, allowing you to be more of a threat from a farther range than normal. It also has no noise for when you're revved up, which not only means you can actually have some ambush viability as Heavy, but it also allows you to be more aware of your surroundings for when a spy decides to stop by and say hello. Ultimately, a very solid choice for a primary. Up next, the family business. It has a larger clip size and firing speed with a slight damage penalty when compared to the shotgun, and from what I've experienced, the damage penalty is only significant enough to hamper your shotgun with the bulkier classes. Classes you ordinarily wouldn't be using the shotgun on anyway due to the typical matchup on the where you'd be meeting them, with the only exception being Soldier. But Soldier notwithstanding, the family business really likes to punish the more mobile classes such as Scout and Pyro, and can even help you out when facing down a spy on the runway. A very solid choice indeed. Then there's the Eviction Notice. It has a significantly faster firing speed, move speed, and, on hit, a speed boost, with the downsides being a damage penalty and a health drain. So, looking at this, it seems to primarily be a tool for escape since the damage penalty is so severe, and with the max health drain, you can't just have it out willy-nilly. The problem being that in order to actually escape anyone, you'd have to hit them first before actually running, and since you're heavy, most classes are going to try to do everything in their power to avoid being right in your face. So, after giving it some more thought, I figured it might be a decent ambush option. Get the drop on enemies, bop them a good one, then use your speed boost and start flanking around with unexpected speed. But that requires good timing and position, not to mention Heavy has other tools that can capitalize on those situations better than this can. So, in the end, I'm gonna have to place these novelty rubber knuckles in the meme tier. Moving on to the Brass Beast with its increased damage and damage resistance at the cost of slower spin-up time and slower deployed movement speed. This was one of the miniguns I was looking forward to the most, because on paper, it just seems so good. In practice, however, you're effectively just a more intelligent sentry gun. If you didn't bring a shotgun with you, you cannot move around on your own. It's a death sentence to go anywhere without a buddy to back you up, and because the Brass Beast incentivizes you to be the ultimate tank, you're practically required to take a snack item with you, meaning no shotgun, which honestly breaks my heart, because I really want this to be a good minigun, and from what I could tell, it is an amazing minigun in Man vs. Machine, but in terms of casual, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to give it meme status. Moving on to the snack items, I'm gonna rank these three snacks at the same time, for they effectively fulfill the same role, with the only difference being when you eat them. The sandwich has a slower cooldown, but you can effectively just eat in a safe place to regain all your health without having to look for a health kit, and even give it to your teammates if they're really hurt. The second banana does the same, except it doesn't heal as much. However, it has a much smaller cooldown, allowing you to practically have it ready at all times, but also to be a lot more giving when it comes to your teammates, allowing you to play a much more supportive role to your team without sacrificing any of your overall power. And on the other end of the supporting spectrum is the Locos bar, increasing your max health while simultaneously giving the same amount of your health to your team as a second banana at the rate of a sandwich. Meaning the chocolate bar is a much more selfish snack, eating it before a fight rather than afterwards, making it the only one of these three snacks to actually increase your overall fighting power. With all that said, I'll give the sandwich and banana solid rankings, while placing the chocolate bar into the situational tier. Next up is the steak and warrior spirit. Ranking these two simultaneously due to the fact that my reasoning for them are so similar. Anyway, similar to the chocolate bar, you eat the steak before a fight. Unlike the chocolate bar, or any other snack for that matter, it doesn't give you any health. Instead, it locks you into melee with the bonus of guaranteed critical hits as well as a speed boost. And unsurprisingly, the melee that capitalizes on that the most is the warrior spirit. The melee option in the same set, basically. With increased health and damage with the penalty of damage vulnerability, this combo seems good for ambushing players. Unfortunately, unless you're really desperate to play some fat demo night, once again, Heavy just has better alternatives for such situations, meaning these two weapons are going into meme tier. Speaking of memes, I don't have much to explain on this one, but you want to play some fat spy? Put on the Holiday Punch. Somehow even more useless than the fists, guaranteed crits from behind that don't deal damage but instead make the enemy laugh, which you can then use the high noon taunt to kill to finish them off. which is funny, but not really a good choice for any loadout that I can think of. Meme tier. Alright, time to talk about the gloves that Heavy likes to wear, and hope you don't mind, but I'm just going to speed through them since there's barely anything new that I haven't already said earlier in the video. Killing gloves of boxing effectively fulfill the same role as the warrior's spirit, except it relies on crits rather than base damage, and you're not quite so vulnerable to damage yourself. Meme tier. The gloves of running urgently. Pretty useful to get to the front lines, and the health drain goes away pretty quickly to boot. Solid tier. And now the Fists of Steel. Surprisingly useful for brute forcing yourself through a Demo Man's sticky trap. Situational tier. Which brings us to the final weapon we have yet to talk about. The Huolong Heater. Easily one of my favorite miniguns in the game. It bursts out rings of fire as you're revved up, although while it does catch spies on fire, unlike with Pyro, the fire alone is not enough to truly deter spies from just stabbing you in the back. Meaning, you've still got to keep an ear out for them spies, which is a more difficult task than normal since the heater is perhaps the noisiest minigun in the arsenal. However, because of the additional damage you deal to burning targets, it's an excellent aggressive minigun, jumping around corners and melting anyone that just so happens to be on that objective or choke point. Although, another tactic I like to use is, because of the fire, you can effectively play as the heavy equivalent of a Pybro, hanging around the NG's nests, spy checking, and you don't really have to worry about ammo since dispensers are right there. Regardless, while these are situations that you can mostly cause yourself, it does require a bit of team coordination and battle flow in order to be able to use this gun effectively, ultimately making this situational tier. And that's about it. What are your thoughts on the various weapons available to Heavy? Do you agree with me? Or are there some weapons here that you disagree with their placements? And if so, then why? Perhaps I'm just not using them right, or got too much faith in them. Either way, I look forward to seeing everyone's opinions on these weapons. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful remainder of your day.